Congratulations on the purchase of an authentic Plains teepee from Gray Wolf Trading Company in picturesque Polson, Montana. Please come and visit us sometime. Here at Gray Wolf Trading Company, we manufacture a teepee and recommend using the 3-pole tripod construction method. The following instructions will address only that method. There are some tribes that use a 4-pole method, which will not be detailed here. The construction of the teepee has changed little over the years. It's a time-tested, warm, and comfortable place to camp. We are sure that you will have many years of enjoyment from your teepee, whether you put it up once and leave it, take it down seasonally, or move it just on a whim. Let's go over quickly the supplies you will need to erect your teepee. Check this list before beginning. It is important to note that depending on the size of your teepee, you will have a varying number of poles, stakes, and lacing pins. The length of your rope will also be shorter or longer relative to the size of your teepee. Stakes, ladder, a mallet or a hammer, canvas teepee, poles, black marker, teepee door, teepee liner, which are both optional, a rope, and a short length of medium weight cotton rope or twine. Once you've collected all your supplies, spread them out on the ground near your canvas teepee. Unroll your teepee and lay it on the ground. Make sure it's folded in half, right sides together and on top of itself for easy marking of the poles. First, select the 4 largest or sturdiest poles and mark them with your black marker. One with an S for south, an N for north, and a D for door, and an L for lift pole. Next, we will measure and mark the poles. Take the door pole and lay it on top of the canvas teepee, roughly 6 to 8 feet in from the door side of the teepee as shown. It is interesting to note that we used reinforced tabs sewn into the teepee both for added strength and durability and for ease of use. This method also varied by tribe, as not all Native Americans chose to use the tabs. Pull each end of the canvas tight and mark the pole at the top with a straight line. It is critical that this mark be accurate, as it is slightly longer than your other measurements. Move the pole off to the side. Marking the poles with permanent ink ensures you don't have to go back each time you assemble the teepee and remeasure. We will be marking all other poles in this manner. The next step is to select your north pole and lay it flat along the straight edge of the canvas teepee. Pull both ends taut and mark it as we did the door pole previously. Then select the south pole and do the same. Continue with the lift pole. Leave the N and S poles side by side and remove the lift pole off to the side. It's time to tie the D pole to the N and S poles at your marks. Move the teepee canvas out of the way to set up your tripod. The knot demonstrated is somewhat like a figure 8, which only needs to be wrapped around the poles 3 times as shown. As you weave the rope in and out of the poles, on each pass under the N and S poles, you'll bring the rope under the door pole like a sling, then continuing on with your figure 8. You've probably already figured out that this isn't a traditional knot. It's really one of our own design. We've tried many styles and we like ours best, of course, although the point is that just about any knot here will work. Just be careful that your knot isn't too tight around the poles. There needs to be a little bit of give, or you could snap the tops right off the poles when lifting the tripod into place. This will form your tripod. Once the poles are tied together, adjust the frame with the door pull facing the direction you want the teepee's door to face. Traditionally, the Indians would face the door to the east as to take advantage of the morning sun and for protection from the prevailing southwest winds and storms. But you can face the teepee in whichever direction you prefer. Now, you're going to lift the tripod or frame into place. One person should hold the rope, using tension to keep the knot from slipping. The second person will position the N and S poles as the poles are being lifted. Movement of the N and S poles should also help to keep the knot in its place. This part is critical. Not enough tension on the knot, and the rope will slip down the poles, requiring you to start over. If your knot is too tight, this is where the tops of your poles could be snapped off. Be careful here. Now select the two lightest poles in the stack and set them aside. These will be your smoke flap poles. Finally, we can begin stacking poles, beginning on the right side of the door pole until you reach the next support pole, which should be your north pole. You should have 4 poles between your door pole and the north pole, all equally spaced about 2 feet apart. Remember, if you have a larger teepee, you may have 5 poles instead of 4 between your tripod poles. Continue stacking poles to the left side of your door pole until you reach the south pole. Again, you should have 4 poles, equally spaced, covering this distance. Next, continue placing the poles beginning near the north pole and moving toward the south pole until all poles have been placed. Between the north pole and your south pole, you should only have 3 poles. The 4th and final pole will be your lift pole, which we will attach the teepee canvas to and move into place. Hopefully at this point you have been successful and now have the frame of the teepee erected with the rope hanging down inside the teepee. Wrap the rope around the top of the teepee, starting from the center of the N and S poles and wrapping the rope tightly around the top. Wrap it 3 times and stake the remaining rope inside the teepee. Let's mention the anchor rope a moment. You can leave it anchored to the center of your teepee, or you can remove it. Wrap it around any pole and anchor it off to the side. Attaching the canvas teepee to the lift pole is simple. Straighten out your teepee canvas and make sure it's folded onto itself in half. Use the small length of lightweight rope or twine and tie the lift pole to the canvas at your mark. Just a note of caution here, make sure you don't tie the canvas too tightly and bind up the body of the canvas. This will create a bunching effect and prevent you from smoothing out the canvas on the frame. It could also cause the canvas to tear, even though we've sewn in reinforcements. Unfold the teepee canvas over the lift pole. Starting at the top and working one side first, gather the teepee canvas inward towards the lift pole. Repeat on the other side. Now you've got your canvas stacked neatly onto your lift pole. With some help, grab the canvas and the pole together and lift into place on the teepee frame. The lift pole and canvas should be the second pole in from the south pole and nearly in the center of the frame opposite the door pole. Now you've almost got it. Wrapping the cover around the teepee frame is next. From each side of the lift pole, grab the canvas and wrap it around each side of the frame. While doing this, make sure the smoke flaps remain on the outside of the canvas. You don't want to discover you left them tucked under the canvas after you've worked so hard to get the canvas on smoothly. Each side of the canvas should reach around to its respective side of the door pole. Walk around the exterior of the teepee and make sure the canvas is stretched relatively flat on the frame from the top to the bottom. Thread the lacing pins above the door to secure the canvas in place. Lacing pins go in right to left. Your canvas on the left should be on top of your canvas on the right. Begin fixing the teepee to the ground with ground stakes. The first stake should be on either side of the door. The third and fourth stakes should be in the back, then beginning working from side to side with subsequent stakes around each of the teepee's sides. For example, after placing the third and fourth stakes, go to one side and place 2 or 3 stakes, then to the opposite side and place another 3 or 4 stakes until you're done. This helps ensure that the canvas is even at the bottom and not crooked on the frame. Pull the canvas tight while securing the ground stakes. You can also do this from inside the teepee by moving the poles outward, forcing the canvas as tight as you can get it. Lastly, it's time to use those smoke flap poles. Insert the tip of the pole into the small pocket on the reverse side of the smoke flap. This may take some practice, but you can do it. Once the poles are in place, it's easy to see that the poles are used to manipulate and position the flaps according to weather. Cross the poles in the back of the teepee to keep the flaps open, or move them both to one side to close them based on wind direction. It's your choice. Once the smoke flap poles are positioned, take a look at the tension on the canvas at the pocket. If it looks too tight, or the poles stick out too far beyond the teepee body, you may elect to trim them down. Trimming the poles eliminates tripping and prevents tearing at the pocket site. If you decide to trim the poles, trim from the top and not the bottom of the pole. Cut the poles conservatively. too much off the top and you may find yourself with poles that are too short to reach the flaps. And that's it! You've just erected a beautiful plains teepee. If you've purchased optional items like a door flap or liner, now is the time to install them. For more information, please visit us online or call us at 1-888-461-5289. Additionally, you can refer to the excellent reference book, The Indian Teepee, Its History, Construction, and Use, by Reginald and Gladys Lobban, on sale in our gift shop or at your local book retailer. Thanks and have fun!